So welcome to this week's Optimum Health Clinic Facebook Live. Once again, it's not Wednesday evening, but my goal is to do a Facebook Live every week, and ideally at 6 o'clock on a Wednesday. But if that's not possible, I'm at least trying to put out a new video each week, and it can be an adventure to see what time it is. So this week, I want to talk about the idea of the boatload of recovery. Many of you who have followed the Optimum Health Clinic approach for a while will be familiar that we use the metaphor for the process of somebody becoming sick in the first place, often being like loads on a boat. So we can think about, what was the thing that caused someone to get sick, but often it's not one thing. Often it's a combination of factors that happen together. It could be factors such as certain psychology subtypes. So it could be being an achiever or being a helper and a kind of living in an unsustainable way. It could be having a virus. It could be going for a significantly difficult life event like a divorce or something like that. So there's a combination of things that happen, and they're like loads on a boat. And so the boat kind of gets loaded up. And it's not any of those one loads on its own, which is what causes the boat to sink. It's having too many loads together, then the boat starts to sink under the weight of all of those loads. And then you have a whole new load, which is the load of living with a chronic illness, the load of having deficient energy, and then suddenly you're having to back out of things you aren't able to do anymore. Perhaps you're having to go part-time at work, and that has financial implications. You've got the anxiety of what's wrong with me, why is it wrong with me, will I ever recover? So you get this whole new load, which is like this kind of much bigger load that sits on top of the boat, and then that can often be what causes it to go kind of sink deeper. So for some people, there is a kind of just like a sudden single event that happens, but normally you have a combination of factors, a kind of gradual onset of factors over time. So as I was thinking about this, working with a patient yesterday, one of the things that popped into my mind is that actually there's also, it's like building a boatload to support recovery. Or put another way, recovery is no single thing. Rarely is it the case that somebody comes to the Optimum Health Clinic and we recognize there's some kind of deficiency or some kind of thing that needs to be addressed. We give a single supplement, and that is the thing which causes someone to get to the point of full recovery. Same on the psychology side. Rarely is it the case, although there are organizations that will put out kind of miracle recovery stories. We've always tended to avoid those. Rarely is it the case that you do one specific thing with a patient and like it's all down to that one factor. It happens, but it happens pretty rarely. Normally, it's a combination of different factors together. Going back to the boatload of what caused someone to get sick, in a sense, you need to load things up to have that combination of factors together to support that recovery path. As I was thinking about metaphors before recording the video, I was thinking you could think about it about taking loads off the boat. So you could be recognizing that you have all those factors that caused you to get sick in the first place and going back and taking off some of those loads to lighten the load. But it's also true when somebody's been ill for a number of years that their life circumstances can be very different to how they were when they first got sick. And actually, those factors which were important then perhaps are not important anymore. And it's a whole different kind of picture of what's going on. And again, to try and more perfectly stretch the metaphor, it could be a case of how do you bolster that boat? How do you put more support under that boat to make it feel more solid? Or we could just talk about putting kind of loads to kind of just sink the boat of illness, perhaps would be the way to think about it. So that comes down to making sure that we have the different, for example, psychology pieces in place, the different nutrition pieces in place. So that could be a case of on psychology, making sure we're working with maladaptive stress response, making sure we're getting into a healing state. It could be working with our emotions, making sure that the important pieces are being done around that. Could be looking at how we're kind of coaching and supporting ourselves. Are we being kind of encouraging and supportive of ourselves, or are we constantly giving ourselves a hard time and beating up on ourselves? are we making sure that we're aware of different stages of recovery and doing the right things for that? On the psychology side, making sure we're having the food that we need, making sure that we're getting the right amount of protein if that's important to our body, looking at supplements, looking from a functional medicine point of view of all the different factors of what could be kind of either have caused us to get sick in the first place or could be obstacles to the healing process. Then there's looking at things like pacing. There's much more we could go into, but there's multiple different factors which are crucial on the recovery path. And I guess the key point I wanted to make in this video is one of the things that tends to happen is we find a few of those pieces that either we stumbled across them a bit more easily, or they're more familiar to us, or we got recommended a practitioner by someone that we know that have been through it and this was the thing that worked for them. And we start putting a lot of our energy and our focus specifically into those factors. And we can forget that it's not any one thing or few things alone. It's a combination. It's a kind of, it's an integrative approach. You are integrating multiple factors and multiple variables. Sometimes you can have the right pieces together in the wrong way, or you can have the right pieces at the wrong time. So it's part of, I guess, the skill of work of practitioners, and one of the things that you learn through working with hundreds of people, and as an organization having worked with thousands of people, is you start to recognize the patterns. You start to be able to look at a case and go, actually, that piece is well covered, that piece is missing, we want to explore whether this piece is important. And it's using that kind of jigsaw or that kind of overall map to be able to identify what's important at what time in one way. So for those of you that are watching that weren't familiar with the kind of boatload of getting sick, it's a helpful process to think about what were the loads on your boat, what were the things that caused a state of crash and burnout. Not necessarily because they're the things that are most important now, but at making sense of how we got sick, I think, can be important. And then looking at what are the different pieces of the jigsaw that are going to support your recovery. And which of those pieces do you have in place? Which do you need to put in place? Are there missing pieces? Are there pieces right now that you're just not aware of? And realizing that you need to have all those pieces together in the right way. And sometimes it's not just a case of working with a practitioner, which is able to kind of recommend certain things, but is able to identify what's going to be appropriate at what time, in what way, and kind of putting together of those pieces. So just looking at questions, hi Hilary. Hilary's saying, is there a cure or treatment for the maladaptive stress response? And the answer is yes. We do a lot of work in terms of teaching people how to calm their nervous systems. For some people, just practicing meditation from home can be a start. For a lot of people, it's more complicated than that, and what can happen is meditation is you calm things down and then it just immediately wires back up again. So we need to understand what are the triggers and the factors that are causing that overstimulation. The 90-day program and the work we do one-on-one on the telephone with people, that's a key building block, and in many ways, for many people, is one of the key starting pieces we work with. It's hard to be effective with other interventions until the body is in a healing state. You can take the best supplements, the right supplements even, do all the right things, but if the body's not in a healing state, they're not as likely to be effective. So that's a crucial starting point for us. So thank you everyone for watching. And just to let you know, one of the things that we have been working on over the last week or so is lining up this new series of recovery interviews that I would start doing over the coming few months. So we're looking to, similar to what we used to do in Secrets to Recovery, but do them as a live video on Facebook Live. So we will probably have a few more weeks of this format, and then we're going to experiment and we're going to try some different things. So thanks for watching, and I will talk to you again next week. Bye-bye for now.